Hello and welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Show. I am your host, Jay Jones. Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the Black community by promoting business ownership. If you are currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, we invite you to join us every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 348. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have another outstanding and informative show in store for you. Today we're going to be speaking with Miss Crystal Jackson, the founder of Head and Heart Philanthropy and Mosaic Genius. And on today's show, we're going to discuss how Crystal helps connect Black people and Black businesses to resources and opportunities. Now, before we get to today's episode, I just want to share a few things with the BEB family. First and foremost, I want to welcome all first-time listeners to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family. Please stick around until the end of today's broadcast, and I'm going to share all my social media contact information and links to my resources such as my new book, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses, and also two platforms I've created to help circulate dollars in the Black economy, BeSmartByBlack.com and HireBlackFreelancers.com, and also my new rebranded, rebooted Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Academy. So we'll talk about all of that at the end of today's episode. Now, let's get ready for this amazing interview with Miss Crystal Jackson. We are live with Miss Crystal Jackson, the founder of Head and Heart Philanthropy and also Mosaic Genius. Crystal, how are you today?
I'm good, and you? Good to see you.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to thank you for taking out your time to talk with me and the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family. And today, we're going to talk about a topic that's very timely. In terms of our pandemic effects on small business and closing the technical gap. So before we get into that though, Crystal, just give us a little background on you personally, and then we'll jump into our topic for today.
Great. Well, first of all, again, thank you for having me. I'm a third generation entrepreneur. I think I'll start there. So I totally understand this game of entrepreneurship. It is a game. Mm-hmm. And about 20 years ago, I started working in what we call the impact sector. I grew up, average middle class family, values around helping and service. And I knew I wanted a career that would allow me to sort of do that. Like I wanted to wake up every day and do something where at night I could say, oh, I've been able to make the world a better place. And at Spelman, I didn't really see a clear path to get there. So I started to try and figure out what's this whole sector of the nonprofit space. So I'll fast forward. After grad school, I interned with the Children's Defense Fund with Mary and Ray Edelman. And I say, if you have any desire to do impact work, you have to know her. She's the queen of this. I mean, she built the Children's Defense Fund. And then after that, I exit interview with Mary, and she said to me, if you learn how to raise money, you'll always have a job. And I thought, wow, well, let me figure out how to raise money. And so I went and worked for UNCF. And where I'm going with this story is, regardless of whatever field you are in, I think if you understand the business of that field, like you understand the business model behind it, I think you will be set up for success. And so in the impact space, it was figuring out how to raise money and what drives people to give. And I launched Head and Heart Philanthropy because I think we've chatted about this before, but I launched it because I knew in our community Black people are very comfortable talking about giving and giving back and being helpful. I knew ultimately that was not where I wanted to end up. I knew I wanted to end up talking more about how do you have money to give back.
Right.
And so I launched Mosaic Genius sort of like to run parallel to talk about this intersection of wealth building and impact. Because I always say jokingly, but I mean it, philanthropy is the first cousin to capitalism.
That's right.
And, if you don't have any money to give, if you don't have any money, you can't give any money. And so I
Exactly.
think it's understanding that very complicated intersection caused me to launch it. And I'll add this on the impact side, on the business side of it, most people think of it as impact investing
Right.
as a tool, right, to sort of, invest dollars and see return. And we can talk more about that as, throughout the interview. But
Okay.
for those listening and listening for the business model and impact, it's really impact investing.
Okay. That makes sense. So you said something very important. So if you're able to raise money, you'll always have a job. And it's funny, I have a t-shirt that says I created there's no revolution without economics. So everything is economic and money driven. And it's unfortunate, not that you can't make an impact with no money. You can start a cause, you can start a movement, but it's a lot easier if you have money. So I want to go to which of your entities was created first, the Head and Heart Philanthropy or your Mosaic Genius?
Head and Heart Philanthropy was created.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family, just break down the difference between Head and Heart Philanthropy and Mosaic Genius and how they kind of run parallel.
Great. So Head and Heart Philanthropy was all about working in the nonprofit space.
Okay.
We picked these buckets: health, education. We've added technology, but health, education, entrepreneurship. And I think entrepreneurship has become very sexy for people
Right.
to talk about, right, in the last 3 to 5 years. But, so then we would say economic development.
Right.
Uh, and I knew that foundations had um, metrics or ways or interventions that they would use to help improve those outcomes.
Okay.
I have always been focused on improving those outcomes in our community. So I wanted to figure out what tools, organizations, individuals that we could lift up that was focused on those areas and doing this work through the lane of philanthropy. I mean, I'll say this and nonprofit work. I say this now, but I sincerely mean it is I do think the impact sector is the third sector. And and I want to say this and I don't want to be offensive, but
Okay.
the amount of money, like let's take venture. People are talking about being VCs and
Right.
so forth. If you raise $10 million, I think that is amazing. But in the world of big business, it's not a lot of money, right?
Right.
So you're still sort of like, to use the term emerging, which I'm not a fan of, but um, I think there needed to be a sector that even served people with those ambitions, right? And so, because typically people are like, well, if you don't, a fund is $150 million. Well, there aren't many Black people walking around that are able to raise $150 million funds. That's just
Right.
to be honest. So oftentimes I think people shy away from the sector, but I think it fills a huge void. It helps get people over. Um, it's a good way to sort of transition. So for me, that's when I started to think about the business case for this sector.
Okay.
And I said, this makes a lot of sense. This space makes a lot of sense because, you know, it's a great sort of in between as you're moving to the next, which
Mhm.
is sort of why I don't like emerging, because it sounds like people are not doing something yet. They are actually doing it. They probably, due to a whole lot of other barriers, may not get there as fast as though. I hope I've sort of answered the question
Nah,
about.
no,
Okay.
that makes sense. I got I just wanted to make it to clarify for the BEB family so you'll understand exactly where you're positioning yourself in your different businesses. Um, Now, I wanted to ask you real quick. When we talked before we started recording, you had talked about hosting a gathering on Martha's Vineyard, and that gathering has actually turned into something. Uh, I don't know if you expected it to grow as big as it did, but tell us about that and tell us what the actual gathering is and what the reason of the gathering is.
So it's funny. This 2021 marks my 10th anniversary. And it feels weird to say that out loud. I literally started gathering people on the vineyard because I kept looking for a safe space where Black people could gather to talk about, to talk specifically about our folks around a couple of buckets. How do we improve outcomes in our community? I've been going to all these conferences and they were the best conferences to attend, and I'm truly grateful. But
Right.
I was tired of paying thousands of dollars and all Black people are going to get is a panel.
Right.
And on that one panel, it's going to be everything non-white and male. And I have some incredible white male friends and I love them, but I was no longer going to participate in that. I
Right.
just made a decision. I'm not going to another one of these. And then, and then I thought more about, well, how do you, as entrepreneurs, what are you solving for? And
Right.
really had no intent to make it a business, but I knew I wasn't alone in this feeling. And I know I talked to enough professionals who over time were like, I want to do X. And at the time, it was the height of the killings in Chicago. And people were talking about, God, what can we do? And so I thought, I'm working with all these amazing people in my practice and I have great friends. They
Mhm.
should know each other. And
Right.
literally invited about 30 people to come that I thought should meet and collaborate and find tools and ways to work together. And so when it was over, they were like, well, next year. And I was like, next year? Like I literally had no, I had no desire. I was like, oh my God. Well, and I kept going. And I'll say this, I kept going because every year someone would walk up to me and tell me how much they needed this experience. And
Right.
I'm not talking about people early in their career. I'm talking seasoned
Wow.
people
Okay.
walking up saying, I needed this room because oftentimes I'm the only one advocating for something else. People start talking about what it meant to have to talk about our community and not have to qualify it,
Right.
right? And the other thing I'll add was I knew I was onto something, and so I said, "Well, Crystal, you have to be intentional about this, right?" So the first intention I had was I only wanted Black people to speak, and that's going to be like, "Ooh." For the
Mhm.
first 8 years, I did that because I thought that Black people needed to see themselves as the experts.
Right.
Because I think there is, there's so much that happens psychologically and subconsciously. And I felt like Black people have forgotten you are the expert.
Right.
You have the lived experience, you have the knowledge and the ability. And so I wanted to create a room when they walked in and they were like, oh my God. So they start walking, God, he's so smart. She's so smart. And I was like, yeah, everybody in here is smart. But
Yep.
everybody in this room is smart. But you've probably sort of forgotten that. And then around year 8, I did open it up to practitioners that were not Black to speak, but that were working specifically in our community. But I was intentional about that. That was the first thing I was intentional about, which
Okay.
had a lot to do with how I was raised. The second thing I was intentional about was who I invited.
Okay.
So it wasn't a room if you are like, so popular and the fanciest. No,
Right.
I invited. I was intentional. Two things were very important to me. One, you had to care about making money as much as you cared about giving it away, right?
Okay.
As much as you were committed to finding wealth, you had to be equally committed to impact. And I shouldn't necessarily say giving away money, but
Right.
in other words, you had to be a person who was like, I'm going to go and I'm taking someone with me.
Right.
This is not the event if it's all about you, right? If it's just about how I'm going to get paid and and I'm securing the bag, and if that's all you care about, this isn't, like, you wouldn't enjoy this room. So
Gotcha.
I was very intentional about people who understood that that was what we have to do. And
Okay.
then the third thing is I was intentional about how people have made their money.
Okay.
Right? So what I mean by, and see, this gets to the heart of impact. That's why a lot of times when people say I'm in impact, I chuckle because I'm like, okay.
Mm.
Um, impact investing and being in the impact sector, it's making certain that as you make money, it's not causing harm.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So if you are out here, if your company is creating more pollution,
Mm-hmm.
but you got a scholarship fund, that's nice.
Right.
But you are, you're causing harm to the
Right.
environment. If your product, whatever you're selling, um, does not empower it will, let me put it this way. If it disempowers and causes harm, even if you're black and peddling it, I'm not
Right.
interested, right? And so if you're working for a company that does not promote women and encourage diversity, and you the only one, and you've been the only one, you probably aren't the executive for this
Right.
space. So I wanted to create a space that was very intentional, and I'm happy. We curate about $3 billion.
Oh, wow.
We help, well, when I say help deploy, what I mean by that is I just provide the stage and people meet and connect. And for years, people have gotten on me about, oh my God, you need to turn this into this and da da da. And in other words, they thought I should be more transactional.
Right.
And that was not what I wanted to do. It was not what I started out to do. And I think it's actually been my secret to my success is that I didn't have a hidden agenda like, okay, now I got to be in your deal. In fact,
Right.
I don't even want to know.
Right.
All I need to know is there was a space intentionally designed for people that are focused on wealth building and community impact in the Black community. And again, I kept going to conference after conference. I didn't see it. And even for some of our historical organizations, I love them dearly, but I never saw
Right.
this as a focus. And so that was how we created the gathering.
So, in terms of the actual number of invitees, has that stayed the same or has it grown over the years of the event?
It has grown. We started out with like 30 people. I have this picture at the end of this, so cute. We kind of all huddled up. Now, and now it's over 100 people. It's really supposed
Oh,
to be,
wow.
yeah, and every year there's like a waiting list, and I'm grateful for that. I
Right.
will say too, I selected Martha's Vineyard in August because, again, I thought it was important for Black people to see ourselves in spaces where we were happy,
Right.
we were on vacation,
Mhm.
we were with our families and with our friends. Um,
Mhm.
and we weren't having to qualify our activity like, oh, Black people do that. Yeah, we do.
Right.
And so
Right.
so I thought, so I wanted, so that was, one real intentional thing. So I think the place makes it easy. And then two,
Mhm.
I am very big on creating spaces where no one feels like they're not important, right? And
Right.
so you can be on Martha's Vineyard and you can walk in up to bump into anyone.
Right.
And that's the way my summit is intentionally designed. There's no VIP room. Uh,
Okay.
there's there's no, like, you sit over here. If you come to the summit, if you speak, you sit at the table with other the attendees, right? And so I just felt like we need more rooms like that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and interesting enough, a lot of the speakers will say to me they've appreciated that because they learned something. right? They weren't
Exactly.
held in the back in the green room till it's time for them to come out and talk. No, that's not what that's, this isn't that. You know,
uh,
I was just sort of raised, everyone puts their pants on at the same
same
time,
time.
more. But by and large, for me, it's been about a value system that says I can do good and do well at the same time and not at the expense or harm of my folks.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there a monetization aspect for you for putting this together? I know you want to do some philanthropic things,
Yes.
but but
Well,
you
this
know,
is good. I mean, it's not a cheap conference to attend.
right?
Um, and so I'll say that. And
Gotcha.
the other part of it is most people are really helping to underwrite. And I don't want to put people on display and say like, oh,
Right.
just open a scholarship to you. But a lot
Right.
of times, if you are younger, if you are a new entrepreneur, you may not have the money just lying around, right? To spend. So we try to figure out ways we can support. So a lot of times the money ends up defraying those costs for people that
Mm,
way. My business, I've created. The interesting thing is, I've created a whole business on that most of these people aren't even clients. That's the
right.
fascinating part. That
Right.
most people who participated in it, they're not even really my clients.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so I've been able to, I don't know how, but figure out I've been able to make these two worlds separate.
Separate. Yeah. Now, do you have a format, a set format for the actual event, and is it a multi-day event?
Yeah. So it's a multi-day event.
Okay.
It is it is it's networking,
Hmm.
it's fireside chats,
Hmm.
and it's panels and workshops, and then
Okay.
and then we have fun. Try to have fun in the
Cool.
evening, right? So it's two and it's normally 2.5 days, of that, and I just, I don't even I speak once
Okay.
the opening, and then I sit back the
Cool.
rest of the time. And amazing people. I have a tremendous board of advisors, and I have friends that just know how to step in and run the 2 days in terms of the content. Because for me, again, it was about creating a space for the people who come.
Right.
Like, they know me, I know them. They don't,
Right.
yeah, they don't need me. I don't need to stand up and this is mine and I've done it. This isn't, no.
Right.
You
Now
know.
that's good. That's good. So you're a true facilitator uh
Yeah.
for the whole event. Now you had mentioned some of the results of the conference,
Yeah.
or not, or of the over the years, which
Yeah.
is great. Have there been any specific results? And I know you don't know all the deals per se, and you're not in the deals that you're really proud of.
Oh my God, yeah. There are. I mean, and it's their stories to tell, but I'll say this.
Okay.
There have been people that literally they were able to scale their work. Um,
Cool.
they were doing okay, but they met someone there that helped them literally scale. Then
Mm,
there have been people that are ready to close shop,
right.
because they just didn't see a clear path or
Mm,
didn't have resources or access. And then they go, oh my God, I've been trying to meet this person and I knew if they could hear my story. So there have been stories of that where people have been able to stay open and they're now thriving. I have to say, I think I want to be careful, but I have to say, I think everyone that's attended has probably survived the period of when they say most Black businesses close shop. I think my
right.
folks, I think they're all still thriving.
Oh,
They may
that's
have
a blessing.
pivoted, right? They may have pivoted. Um,
Mhm.
there have been people that, you know, um, have met partners to work with that have the partnerships that have been formed,
Right.
um, and the long term like friendships. Like this year, we really missed being together.
Yeah.
Um, the friendships that have been formed. But I have to say personally, since I'm comfortable sharing mine, is
Okay.
so eh, I'm now at a different point than I was when I first started doing this, and now as I become more seasoned in age and all those, you know, flying all around is not as cute.
Right.
Um, and and I've been thinking more about a place-based strategy. And kudos to JP Morgan. I have to say this, can't thank them enough. When I first started, the first one, they were my content partner.
Oh, wow.
That's right, a woman by the name of Celeste Smith, who's no longer with the firm, but she helped me gather really all the content. So grateful.
Hmm.
I pitched something to folks at JP Morgan while we were there that really would move me into place-based work. And
Hmm.
we tried it out and piloted it. And, it was tech, a tool for sustainability. So proud of this new platform I'm launching because, you
Hmm.
know, I am originally from the South. I'm a daughter of the Gulf Coast.
Hmm.
So I'm very familiar with hurricanes.
Right.
Um, Family came over from Haiti through New Orleans first. So quasi NOLA.
Right.
Uh, right, probably fake NOLA, as some would say. But it's where my folks started, and it's where they
Okay.
started entrepreneurship. They created barges, and they used those up and down the Mississippi River, and ended
Wow.
up in Mississippi. But that's sort of the story, and
Hmm.
why I believe in the American dream. I do think it is possible.
Hmm.
Yet I can be critical of this country at the same time.
Definitely.
But fast forward, I pitched this idea to launch this initiative in New Orleans, specifically around helping small businesses become more tech enabled. Now, when I say
Okay.
this, you can appreciate this. Every Black person that's ever gone to the Essence Festival or New Orleans in the summertime is going to understand when I say this. My last Essence Festival that I thoroughly enjoyed, I
Hmm.
was standing in line to get something to eat,
Hmm.
and it was hot. And
Right.
I sweat. I am like, oh Lord. And the line is long, but you're not gonna get out of it. So
Right.
you just make an event out of it. You just start talking to people. And
Hmm.
I kept thinking when I got up there, to finally got in there
Hmm.
after having lived in the Bay Area past 3 years. Now, I think I know everything about tech. So I get in there and I'm like, this man pulls out a pen and paper and like writing the name down.
Right.
And I said, this is why we've been outside for the last 3 hours.
Right.
And I kept thinking, what would it look like if businesses here use more technology?
Right.
Um, and this was pre-pandemic, right? And so
Hmm.
I pitched this idea, said, I think more small businesses need tech tools. Now you can probably agree to this too.
Hmm.
One, technology is a little scary. Two, it's a little expensive. And
Right.
so most small businesses that I know of, and then people are just trying to keep going. They really don't have the brain space and the budget capacity to think about, well, let me just go buy this new $150,000 tech tool and it'll do
Right.
it. That's not how it works. But I knew that in order for a lot of these businesses to scale,
Hmm.
stay open, they were going to have to become more tech enabled. And so I said, I went to JP Morgan and I said this. And they kind of looked, I'm sure they were like,
Hmm.
yeah, okay. And so they're like, I was a pest and consistent, and I'm persistent, and
Right.
I kept going. No, we can make this work. We can make this work. They said yes. So
Okay.
put together this cohort of small businesses, and even the people in the cohort are kind of like, yeah, kind of what you're saying makes sense. Yeah, kind of, sort of. Yeah.
Hmm.
COVID hit. Everybody said, oh my God, what you said makes sense. Do you have more room in that cohort? I know a business that needs some tech tools because what happened?
Right.
If you were tech enabled, when
Mhm.
COVID hit, you were able to stay open, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
if you
That's
were
true.
that's right. If you were tech enabled, the impact was not as dramatic. And even when they started to open things up, you kept hearing, is it contactless?
Right.
Uh, can people, so then it was like, oh my God, Crystal, that makes sense. But it made me happy too, because I was like, yes, it is time to take all that we built and learned and know and resources and put them in the community. right?
Right.
I wanted to start here by helping small businesses become more tech enabled. And like, depending on who you talk to, tells you what phase of COVID we're in.
Right.
So I feel like we probably maybe halfway. I'm not a scientist, but
Right.
I think we're going to be in the house a while.
Right.
I, I still think we have a while before we are out of being socially distant. And in
Right.
fact, I think it's going to be a way of life. And I keep thinking about what it looks like for more small businesses around the country to have these tools. Um,
Right.
and when you hear the numbers of small businesses closing, uh, it's heartbreaking to think
It
about.
is heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. And so you didn't ask me this, but I'll say this. The other
No.
part about our work that I'm proud of is, so that's kind of like, I'm so happy about this. The
Okay.
other part of the work that I'm really happy about is there will be businesses that, how can I put this? You will either pivot, you will have or you need a soft landing. And I have been working day and night thinking about how to help people have soft landings. Might be getting a little late, but
Right.
um, if you've put years and years into building something,
Right.
and something happens and it's all gone, that's devastating,
It is
right?
devastating.
And here's the other reason I picked NOLA.
Hmm.
For NOLA knows, New Orleans knows what that feels like.
Right.
Katrina came in and wiped out what people had been building. So there's a story to why I picked NOLA, right?
Right.
Is this moment is going to require a level of resiliency, um, and commitment and hope that we've not seen in a long time. The
Right.
other part about people in New Orleans that I'll lift up, and business owners in New Orleans, is,
Mhm.
you know, they say Black people save themselves in New Orleans. Like, I know there are a lot of people that want to think that um, they made these investments, and they did, and that's good. But
Mhm.
by and large, Black folks were left to figure it out on their own.
Well, yeah.
And people were living on people's sofas, like people became
Exactly.
community, right?
Mhm.
um Not charging you rent, but just whatever it was you had to do to help people sort of get back on their feet. And
Right.
COVID's gonna look a lot like it. Post
Definitely.
COVID, when we return to normal, I think there are lessons we'll be able to learn. So, saying all that to say, happy taking place-based strategy to a community where business owners look like me and they need tech tools.
So, in respect to the businesses that you're serving, or your cohorts are serving, is there an average size? Are they mom and pops, or do you have like large businesses, or what? Break that down for us
That's good.
and
It's a
talk to
really
us.
good, really good question. And that's one of the things I went back and forth with JP Morgan is,
Mhm.
I was open, because you can be mom and pop, but with the right technology, you can, whoop, 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 you
Yep.
can, you know,
Hmm. It's
um,
true.
so I didn't want to discriminate. I just wanted you to have a real legitimate business.
Right.
And legitimate, I meant you had all the right certifications, right? And then you had been in business at least 2 to 3 years, right?
Okay.
So that was sort of like the criteria for me.
Okay. So no revenue, specific revenue numbers or anything.
You just needed to have a business that
Mhm.
I could see where, if technology was infused, your business could be was sustainable, or it could
Okay.
scale. Yeah.
So, in terms of the technology that you were implementing or helping these businesses implement, was it something as simple as software as a service? Did you have large, technology? Don't I mean? So I'm trying to figure out. So if somebody wanted to say sell on online, and they're mom and pop,
Yeah.
and did like there's all types of way you can sell on Amazon. You got Shopify. You got all types of platforms. So was it out of the box software or technology mostly, or was it customized technology?
It was really simple, right?
Okay.
The businesses, um, one company just, needed the inventory that you would need if you're running a restaurant. And I learned this. There's software that you need to help you truly understand what it costs to create a product.
Right.
Every little, but technology can help you figure that out. And you have to know this if you want to go to the SBA for a loan, right? I
Right.
didn't know that, but they knew that this business now has that. I'm so happy because now they are better positioned to talk about their business.
Yeah.
A hair salon. Uh, she was using a book and some paper, you
Oh
know,
Lord.
right. And so she didn't know anything about scheduling. She didn't have a scheduling tool
Hmm.
and, a way to communicate with her clients beyond, trying to pick up a phone call, but pick up a phone. It was the difference it made in her business. And then, her industry had these requirements to open back up. You have to have these things.
Right.
Helping her get set up with the right type of tools and kiosks was a
Yeah.
life changer for her business. And I mean, and if it just depended. It could be sometimes people just needed more tools. They were, some people are thriving, and some businesses are thriving in COVID.
Exactly.
And so it was, I need to hire more people. I need more computers. Well, you may not have the money until you get the contract and the check, right?
Right.
You
Right.
have to go, right? But you still needed X amount of new computers or whatever the case may be. Being able to help with that. And it's something you mentioned about creating more online stores, helping people think through what was the technology that they needed so that they could do that. So again, it wasn't always something, like we up sometimes I think we overthink like
Yeah.
what I need. No, it is sometimes it's just a couple of simple tools.
Right. So now that makes a lot of sense. Now, what did they have assistance with the implementation of the technology?
Yeah, so every
Okay.
what they did. And and I within the budget that I had, I made certain we helped as many people as we
Yeah.
could. But they were able to see just what a little difference of technology, the little difference it made. So,
Definitely.
well, that restaurant I was standing in line,
Yeah.
fan festival. Now, I don't know, but hopefully I
Hmm.
can get them too and say, listen, this tool. So when it opens back up, people
Right.
can go around the corner and shop and then buzz and come eat, right? Just
Right.
something simple like that. Because I think about, everybody didn't stay in line that day. I
Right.
did.
Right.
But
Yeah.
money walked away versus how much they could have possibly.
Yeah. That reminds me of a story. When you were talking about the pen, the taking orders or whatever for the salon or whatever with a notepad and pen or whatever. So there was a new black rib restaurant, and I knew the guy. He was a friend of a friend.
Okay.
So I said, all right, I'm gonna go support support this restaurant. And he'd been open about a week. And the first thing I noticed when he got in there, they were taking orders with a regular pad. Hey, I want, give me a platter of ribs or whatever. And I'm and I'm thinking to myself, this isn't good, right? so
Messed up
so
with,
they take what'd you say?
I said, this gonna get messed up with all that.
Exactly. So they're taking orders, and I saw his son, and his son and my daughter were friends, my youngest daughter. So I was like, "Hey, man, y'all need a POS system, bro. You know, point of sale system." I said, "Not only will it help you with your orders, but it can help you track and keep track of your inventory. What days are you selling? You know, fish on, ribs on. Inventory management. Everything."
At what time do I need to be open? You
Exactly.
this to that? Should I just be a lunch? Should we just do lunch here? Should we just do dinner? All of
It,
those.
all of those metrics. And so I said, you can go right down to Staples and you can get a square point of service system. I said it's very simple to operate. You type in your menu items and it does everything for you. And so I say that to say this. There are many people that start businesses, and me being a serial entrepreneur and a coach, I coach a lot of entrepreneurs. a lot of times you need to make sure that you have the fundamental tools to be successful before you open the doors. And if that means that you have to save up money, to be able to buy the tools, then that's what you need to do. So I go back to a real story of mine when I started. I've had 17 businesses, right? So I think we talked about I started an alarm business one time after I had gone back into corporate after my first business didn't do that well. And so I was working in corporate and as an advertising exec. And I was saving up money because I knew when I opened this new ADT dealership, I'm gonna need desk, office space, computers, phones, and the whole shebang. So each time I got paid, I had a list and I'm like, all right, I need this. And so after a couple of months, my basement looked like a full blown office. And I ended up moving in. And one of my buddies was like, man, how did you pay for all of that? I said, yeah, dude, it was over time. And I said, so a lot of times you need to plan because if you start a business and you don't have the tools to be successful, give yourself the edge up and leverage the technology. So I'm with you 100% on that, Crystal.
I think you're spot on. And I think I didn't share this part of when I started my business. I really became an entrepreneur because I wanted freedom.
Right.
And a real sort of quick story. My grandmother was sick.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother was my first pen pal. Like she was my grandmother.
Right.
And I remember, we rushed and we got there and we talked to the doctor and was out of town. I could leave home where I was living to go where she was living.
Right.
And the doctor looked at me and I said, so tell me, like how long should we prepare for her in this state?
Right.
And this is a woman who had never been sick.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a challenge for everyone. And he said it could be 5 months or she could be like this for 5 years.
Mm.
I remember calling my supervisor because I had a job. And
right.
calling him. He said on the phone, well, I told him just what I told you.
Yep.
And what does this mean? Are you going to be at work Monday? And I was like, this isn't how I want to live.
Exactly.
Right? That my grandmother, who probably has 5 months to 5 years, whatever that looked like.
Right.
I did not want to turn her over to some caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
Or, my mother could not retire. She was a few months from retirement. She couldn't
right.
leave. She was a few months from retirement.
Right.
And here I was, the one in the family with flexibility. And I immediately, when I hung up the phone with him, I said, well, I won't be there Monday.
Right.
Figured out FMLA and all that. Mm-hmm. But you better know, to the point of preparation, mm-hmm. that week, I figured out what I could sell, what I did not need. Mm-hmm. So that I could figure out a way to not have to have a job.
Correct.
And for me, it was more so about how do I create freedom for myself and for others? Because I just thought there's no way in the world I want to live like this. So the point of preparation was when I first started this business, I knew people wouldn't understand it because it's so different. Like people get paid, you get paid to give away people's money. Like explain this to me, right? Because I knew it's such a new concept. I mean, this sector was probably the sector was probably 15 years old when I started doing this. But the point with this is you do have to plan.
Right. Definitely.
Regardless of whatever business you go into, you have to plan. And so I knew that I was going to be starting a business. I wasn't going to have a lot of money to have my fancy car and trips and all those things, right? But I kept thinking about, I want to be with my grandmother. Whenever she opens her eyes, if she opens her eyes, whatever the case is, I want her to see us sitting right there.
That's right.
I had to go be somewhere at somebody's job prevented me from that moment. No. Yeah. So I just, from that moment on, I said, no, I don't. There are things I don't need. And so you made a point when people saw where you opened with all of this, people don't understand there's this season of preparation.
Definitely. Season of preparation.
That's right. that goes along with it. And it shows up because in the moments when it's hard and it's not making sense and you're not bringing in the money, then you know why you're there. What
Exactly.
value is keeping you there? And I think for me, the value around wanting Black folks to see themselves in a positive way, right?
Right.
Wanting Black people to see their brilliance and that they are not limited, that um, that all these barriers that have been created, there's a way around
Man, yeah.
them. And one of the ways we get there is through collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to why I created the vineyard, we needed to trust each other. We needed to be in a room and know that, wow, there are space like me trying to do what I'm trying to do that I can share this idea with them. It's not going to end up
Right.
explode, right? So yeah, so I do think to the point you made about preparation, that has to be a value that we have to understand. There is a process and a season of that I think sometimes people see this. You didn't ask me for this, but I think
Mm-hmm.
in the journey of entrepreneurship, people see stuff and they go, I
Right.
want, they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand that's 10, 15 years of building, right?
Right. What you don't see. Right.
Right. That you don't, that is going to work on a job, but waking up at 3 to 5, working on your business,
Exactly.
coming back home after you have dinner or go work out, you working from 6 to 11 on your business. People don't,
Exactly.
right? And I think that's what people have to understand is um, it takes that.
Definitely. I wanted to touch on this real quick. You basically told us your why, right?
Yeah.
When you jumped out. And I think that's something that people really need to think about and understand. And you also touched on something earlier in our conversation about how now entrepreneurship is sexy, right? So when I started as an entrepreneur 20 plus years ago, I was an idiot, right? I left corporate, I left corporate America. And yeah, entrepreneurship wasn't sexy then. This dude is an idiot, right? Why are you leaving this good job? Blah, blah, blah. But but
He don't want somebody telling him what to do. Like, do you know when you're an entrepreneur, you have more bosses?
that
Yeah.
exactly right. And so one of the things is like one of my whys, and I've shared this on my podcast. I'm pretty transparent on the podcast, but my wife and I we have 3 children. My oldest daughter is just turned 25, my youngest is 21, and my son would have been 19. And so we lost our son to brain cancer at 17 months old. And so one of the things that was a blessing to me was that I was my own boss. I was an entrepreneur at the time. So if I had to go to the hospital and spend the night with him when he was getting chemo treatments, I was able to do that. My wife needed a break. She had to stop teaching. She was a teacher at the time. And so we had the flexibility. Now, money was a little funny because I had just started that business, but I had the flexibility. And one of the driving factors behind why I'm a serial entrepreneur and why I'm so hell bent on this is because I always wanted to have that time with my wife and my kids. So one of the greatest, I guess, rewards for me for being an entrepreneur was being able to go to my daughters played sports and, they were great academic students and they played sports in high school and even in college. My younger one did. And so I was able to go to their field hockey games. From my daughter's oldest daughter was a senior, my youngest daughter was a freshman. From my youngest daughter's freshman year, I never missed a home game, an away game, their travel teams, and I even scrimmages. And people used to ask, "Did your dad work?" He's like, "Yeah," But I was able to create what I call the freedom equation, and I did an episode on it. Cash flow plus passive income equals freedom. And so I was able to build that. But my why was to spend time with my family, be able to be an active father, a participative father, where, you know, the kids know, hey, dad is going to be there. Dad is going to be there for us. It doesn't matter what happens. And so that was one of the things, my biggest why. And even today, you know, I'm able to, yeah, you got other bosses because, for example, I got to make sure this podcast comes out every Monday, right? I got to continue to create content. So yes, I'm not totally free, but I have that flexibility. And like I said, God, you know, I was blessed when my son was sick. Because if I had a job, Crystal, I'm gonna tell you, my son was at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, one of the top hospitals actually in the world for pediatrics. And there were so many families from all over the country and in the United States that one parent would come to be with the kid and the other one would have to stay to continue to work. You know, there were some kids in there, and you got to know a lot of the families on the oncology floor. There was some children there that had no parents there because they had to work. So I'm just like, my God. And I guess that type of stuff probably won't affect you until it does, but you got to figure out what your why is. And if your why is more important, then go ahead and do something about it. But I just wanted to share that story with the listening audience and also to you.
Thank you for that. That's beautiful, and I can relate. I can I
Yeah.
can I can totally relate.
Yeah.
And you know, you think about, here's what I hope people are thinking about is not to be spooky, but you know, this pandemic is a health pandemic,
Exactly.
and you know, I can think of, I know at least like 12 people who've passed, but I do know there are people
Mm.
that will be struggling for a while with
Yes.
health issues. And so many people, their lives are going to look very different, right?
Definitely.
And so I think we have to be thoughtful about even that, how we're going to be able to support people who will probably be disabled.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, we don't like it. This is so new and different. No one really knows what's going to happen. I mean, you know,
Mm.
we're afraid, but I think that you make a great point, and what a great story,
Thank you.
able
Yeah.
to do that, and more people. Um, I think, I hope, I pray, can position themselves to be there for their loved ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's paramount. You
that's
know, one of the things I got a couple, not gonna hold you too much longer. I wanted to ask you in terms of feedback from some of the businesses that you were able to help or assist through your organization. Have you spoken to? Do you stay in touch with those businesses or?
Oh yeah, I mean, there are very few folks I've done business with who don't like me anymore.
I can see that.
It is, as a saying, teeth and gums fall out. I don't know if that's appropriate for the podcast, but sometimes you just fall out.
Yep.
Though, yeah, they have. I mean, and even if I am not, quote unquote, still doing work for them during this season, we've checked in. Um,
Right.
I've just said, you know, if I can be helpful as you all think of, and not even hiring me, but
Right.
and they reached out to me, like, if I can be helpful in thinking through some of these stubborn issues that are appearing around institutional racism that people didn't think existed, but now we all see.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, you know, if you know, if I can be helpful and advise, because people did, a lot of executives panicked and they did not
Yeah.
know what to do. And so I've talked to several folks, and we've been trying to think through, you know, what we think is going to make sense long term. And I'll say this, you know, the politics and the divisiveness of politics right now didn't make it any better.
Right.
So, you know, I feel like there were so many storms at one time, and
Yeah.
helping people try to figure out, you know, how to navigate this difficult moment. I've done a lot of that. And it's funny, you know, LinkedIn made me an influencer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so a lot of companies started reaching out to me.
Mm.
I just talked to a lot of people, and I said, listen, if we don't do anything beyond this conversation, I hope you can walk away with certain tools to help you go back and make the workplace better and the community. So
Yeah.
happy to.
So what's some advice that you would give to entrepreneurs to help them close that technology gap?
Yeah. Well, I would say figure out what you need to sustain your business during COVID. What technology could you implement that would allow you to keep your business doors open? And if you
Mhm.
have all of them, great.
Right.
If you're doing B2B, there's still tools you need that someone dealing directly with consumers may need. Like I had to up all of my broadband and all
Mhm.
the packages that you need to do events or conversations. Like, so I think figure out what is it that you need to keep your doors open and what tech tool can you implement to assist you with that. That's my advice. And start with what you can afford.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. I'm sorry.
Some of these tools are free. Everything's
Oh,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, start with what you can afford.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just going through as the end of the year is coming up. I'm looking at my QuickBooks and I'm looking at all the money I spend on software, and I'm like, this is crazy.
Oh, wow.
And so one of the objectives I have for 2021 is to kind of pare down some of the stuff because I have certain software that may overlap in certain areas, and I'm just like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest issues when I'm coaching students. I'm like, look, you're going to need this type of software, this type of software. They're like, oh my God, I haven't made a dollar yet. I said, yeah, but you're going to need to be able to leverage that technology to obviously hopefully make more money. um I wanted to ask you, before we close on out, how can people follow you or get in touch with you if they have any questions? And if you have any social media handles that you want to share, or I don't know, when we talked before, you didn't even want to have your face on the screen. So I don't know if you're private. I'm messing with you right there, Crystal.
Yeah, they can follow me on LinkedIn, Crystal M. Jackson. We are in the middle of doing a free series called Falling into Purpose. You can find that series there. Interviewed four amazing women: Erica Alexander,
Oh,
Emily
cool.
Proctor, two actresses. Esther Tricochet, she is an investor with an incredible story. Cheryl Crusoe, a Black woman in finance. And now we're launching our next series featuring men. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm hanging out a lot because I care deeply about people and their businesses and their careers and helping them find ways to navigate this moment. So yeah, find me there on LinkedIn.
Tell people how you spell Crystal, because I know there's several ways.
That's right, Crystal. It's Christal.
Gotcha.
Crystal. My brothers named me. Don't ask me where they got that spelling.
Okay,
But you can find me hanging out there for sure.
cool. Um, is there anything that I didn't ask you on this interview that you need to share with the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family? Sometime I'll forget as we start talking. And so if there's something that I missed or you wanted to share, please let us know.
No, I think you've covered it. I'm happy you allowed me to talk about the why, and you have a
Yeah,
why. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what's going to keep us getting up and going. So
definitely,
into this holiday season, and during this unusual time, I think we're all going to have to dig deep and figure out our why.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
It's been some hard months for some people. This is,
Oh, definitely.
oh my gosh, right? And
Yeah.
so I think
I look
as we pivot, I hope we don't pivot away from our why.
exactly. Exactly. That's a great point. I look at there's a diner that I go to, I may frequent like once or twice a week. Now, if my wife was here, she'd probably say more, but I'm
Right?
just gonna say once or twice a week, right? And it's funny because I look at some of the owners, that I know, some of the waiters and waitresses out there, and talking to them after the diner reopened, and they were like, "Oh my God, we're struggling just to hang on." And so, one thing I always tell people, I said, you always want to have multiple streams of income. I said,
Yes.
if you got one stream of income, I said, you're
Woo-hoo,
at risk. And
woo-hoo.
so, with the internet, and the way commerce is going, I said, I don't care if you're selling number 2 pencils and paper clips. You
Yeah.
need to be selling something on, on the internet, right? And so I'm about to institute, I don't know what I'm gonna call it yet, but it's like make your first dollar on the internet challenge. I'm gonna do something like that because I think once people can start to make money passively or create a product or service one time and continue to get paid for it, it's a beautiful thing when you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I made X amount of dollars, even if it's $20 a day.
I was
You know?
asleep.
Yeah, it's beautiful because I'm like, man. And so I think from my perspective as a coach, a business coach, when people make their first dollar on the internet after they've created a product or service, they're hooked because it's like, man, I didn't even have to do anything after I get, well, you still do, but just the thought of making money while you sleep, you got to get on. Last question for you. This is a tough one now. You ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah. You got to adjust your glasses and everything. All right. If you had the opportunity to have a conversation with one person, living or dead, who would that be and why?
That's a good question. Uh, I would want to talk to Harriet Tubman.
And why? Why would that be?
Um, you know, who this is gonna sound like when did she decide how did she decide that she had done enough? She said, okay, I've
That's a good question.
yeah, because I would love to know when did she know like this is enough.
Yeah. Sometimes you get that divine intervention that says, be still, or it might be she may have been too old to continue to do what she was doing, or she found a different way to
That,
accomplish what she needed.
you hit it. She found a different way.
Yeah.
When did she know that she had, that was enough?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to think about it. You're wise beyond your years, Crystal.
I, sometimes it's gotten me in lots of trouble, right? But thank you for that.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing time with the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family, your entrepreneurial journey, the wisdom that you dropped with the with all of your knowledge and know-how. So we definitely appreciate you sharing this time.
Thank you for having me and congratulations on your success. And I'm so
Thank you.
happy for this important work.
That was an amazing interview with Miss Crystal Jackson, the founder of Head and Heart Philanthropy and Mosaic Genius. Now, before we get to the takeaways, let me share my social media contact information and my resource links to all the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint ecosystem. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show that my new book is out, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. So if you're interested in building a successful, sustainable e-commerce business, go to anewblackwallstreet.com. Pick yourself up a copy. Print version $14.95. The digital version is $9.95. Now, if you need additional assistance building your successful, sustainable e-commerce business, I've created a compatible online program. This is my flagship online program titled Brand Builder Academy Elite. This is a 14-week interactive program that takes you from point A to point Z to help you build a physical products brand and or a digital products brand. Pound for pound, it's my #1 program. So go to bbaelite.com and use the coupon code BBAELITE100 to save $100 off. Also, I mentioned at the top of the show, the 2 platforms I've created to help circulate dollars in the worldwide Black economy. The first one is besmartbyblack.com. So if you are a Black product producer that is looking to sell your products to Black consumers worldwide, upload your product information to besmartbyblack.com. It is free and connect with consumers worldwide that want to buy your products. Now, I didn't forget about you freelancers. So if you do anything on Fiverr or freelancer.com, make sure you upload your contact information to hireblackfreelancers.com. HIRE blackfreelancers.com. Once again, connect with Black businesses and Black consumers that are looking to hire Black freelancers. Now, I mentioned also at the top of the show my new rebranded, rebooted Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Academy. Go to BEBacademy.com. you can take access or get access to all of the trainings and the courses behind the Academy for free for 5 days. So go to bebacademy.com. You can play around with anything in the Academy. Total free access for 5 days, bebacademy.com. Now, I know this is a mouthful, so you can go to bebconnect.com, and all of the information that I just talked about and all my social media contact information will be there, bebconnect.com. Now, let me give you my social media handles. And anytime I say Jay Jones, it's spelled out Jayjones. So if you want to connect with me on anything long, guys, hit me via email, jjones@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. Facebook, just type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Twitter, jjones001. Instagram, that's jjones for real, Jayjones, the number 4, REAL. Also, YouTube. Please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I have additional content on YouTube, so just type in YouTube, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Hit the subscribe button. Yes, the podcast does come out on YouTube, but there is additional content on there also. LinkedIn, just type in Jay Jones, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Connect with me there. Also, don't forget, if you're on Clubhouse, hit me at I am Jay Jones, at I am Jay Jones. Now, let's get back and talk about some takeaways from today's interview with Miss Crystal Jackson. So the first thing that I really picked up on is something that Crystal said early on in the interview. She said, if you learn how to raise money, you'll always have a job. People and businesses always need money. So if you learn how to raise money, you'll always have a job. That is a great piece of advice for anybody out there. Also, she talked about philanthropy is the first cousin of capitalism. And I say this all the time, there's no revolution without the economics. And once again, if you want to be philanthropic, you have to have the resources to do that. And the way you're going to have to get those resources is through capitalism. You may not be the capitalist, but if you're soliciting resources, somebody else or some other entity is the capitalist. So understand how important it is to be able to finance and fund whatever type movements that you're trying to create or you're trying to make happen or come to fruition. So that was very important. Also, Crystal talked about her why. That was very important. And I think, as she said on the podcast, that's a major driver for you and helps you become successful, because it's not just about money. There's always something deeper. There's always something deeper. And I think once you tap into your why, that's going to help propel you to success. So you know how we do it, guys. Make sure that you support Crystal. Check her out on social media and support the things that she's doing for our community. Now, I say this each and every week, but I have to, because it's the truth. We get more and more downloads each and every week, and that's because of you, the BEB family. Please continue to spread the word about the podcast and the blog, and once again, the movement, because it's about building an economic power base in the Black community. And that's what it's all about, building and supporting Black-owned businesses, looking out for your brothers and sisters, and basically just doing what's right. And so over these 6.5 years, we've got millions of downloads, and it's attributed all to the BEB family. And once again, we're trying to get this good word out there. So please spread the word via word of mouth, social media, smoke signals, whatever you got to do, because once again, it's a movement. Love you guys. See you same time next week. Peace.